Hi everybody, it's Meg from Books Off the Beaten Path, and today we're going to be talking some Brontes. Particularly, we're going to be talking about a little bit of a lesser known work from Charlotte, and then my very first Anne Brontë read, which is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, which I'm going to put right up there, because I realized this morning when I was going to do this video, that I had taken the book back to the library, but it was a crummy copy anyway. It wasn't pretty, and so this is much prettier, and we'll leave it up there for a little bit just so you can see how pretty it is. Okay, starting from the top, why do I want to talk about this? Well, as we all know, my favorite book in the world is Jane Eyre, and I've got 2 or 3 copies of it. Bob has come to join us. Off you go, Bob. I've got 2 or 3 copies of it, including this beautiful edition. Excuse me while I remove Bob. Oh, Bob. Ugh. Okay. So, beautiful edition. Here's my cat. Oh. Okay. Now, once we get Bob situated... Sorry, that looks obscene, doesn't it? There we go. Now, Bob is taken care of. Once we get Bob situated, we're going to go back to my all-time favorite book, Jane Eyre. Now, why do I love it so much? Because it's so gothic. It is candlelight. It is the mad woman upstairs. It is the handsome man. It's just... who has the mysterious past. It's just wonderful. I think it's absolutely wonderful. So, but I also, years ago, read Villette. Villette, I believe is how you pronounce it, Villette. And this became my second favorite Bronte. Now, in Villette, we have a little bit of a supernatural spin in it because we do have a spooky nun. A spooky, ghostly nun that keeps appearing and nobody can figure out what's going on with that. But basically, this was just her, Charlotte Bronte's novelization, if that's a word, of her time as a student in Brussels. She was a student. In the book, she works at a school and she falls in love with an English doctor, but he's like really mean, and you have a lot of, I am so sorry about Bob in every frame of this video, but he just will not go away. So we'll just let it be. So in Villette, if you have read it, count yourself among the lucky few, because several of my very well-read friends had never heard of it. And it's wonderful, especially the ending. When you get to the ending, your heart just breaks. But it breaks in a good way. She's Charlotte, all the Brontes, Charlotte, Anne, Emily, all of the Brontes were geniuses. They really were. But let me just take a moment before I tell you about my experience with Wildfell Hall that I don't get Wuthering Heights. I don't know why people want to read that. I don't know why that's considered a classic. I just don't get it. I've never enjoyed it. I've tried so many times, countless times, because I want to like it, but I just can't seem to like it. So anyway, that won't be a review you will see here of Wuthering Heights, because I don't think I'll ever get through it. Okay, so The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. I just finished that. It took me a little longer than my regular books. It took me 19 days to finish, but it was so good. It was so good. Basically, it is about a woman who is horrendously abused by her husband, but not physically. She's not really physically abused. She's emotionally abused, definitely. She's psychologically abused, definitely. But there was no mention of him, beating her or anything like that, though you knew he was always this close. You always felt that he was just this close. But anyway, she leaves him, and she takes her young son with him, and she becomes the tenant of Wildfell Hall. And a young man from down the road, Gilbert, falls in love with her, and all sorts of things ensue. But it's very Calvinistic in a way. At one point, the husband gets sick. The husband, who's just been horrible to her, gets sick, and she goes back to him. She goes back to him to nurse him, and he's still mean to her. Like, why? I don't know. I guess our 21st century outlook on women, or with women, or of women, we would not do that. But I would say that maybe somebody that was expected of women in that time, and she does go back and do that, even though he's still abusive to her, he's still rude to her. It's a wonderful read. I just have to say that whenever you're doing a Brontë, you're going to need to sink some time into it, because you really get enveloped in the story and the setting, and the minor characters become just as interesting as the major characters are. Like we have in Villette, we have this young woman who is constantly sort of taunting our heroine about, you know, how much prettier she is and how much more likable she is and how much more money she has and everything. And then in Wildfell Hall, we have these really gossipy kind of neighbors and everything that Gilbert gets all upset with and everything. The Brontes are wonderful reads, but what I want you to do is, if you get a chance, check out Villette and Wildfell Hall and just let them wash over you. I like them so much. As a matter of fact, I enjoyed Wildfell Hall so much that when I was at the bookstore recently, I picked up Mexican Gothic, which I have heard is kind of an inspiration of Jane Eyre, but with a very different background to it, a Latino background to it. And so I'm going to give it a go. Probably not next. Next, I want to read some of my vintage books. But Mexican Gothic does not look good. Let's read the back together. Let's read the back. After receiving a frantic letter from her newlywed cousin, Naomi heads to High Place, a distant house in the Mexican countryside. Naomi is an unlikely rescuer. She's a glamorous debutante, more suited for cocktail parties than amateur sleuthing. But she's also tough, smart, and not afraid, which I would say of all the Brontë characters. Tough, smart, and not afraid. Remember, it's Jane who goes out in the middle of the night with the candles seeking the noises, the creepy noises. She doesn't stay huddled in a room. Go Jane. Let's see where I was. She's tough, smart, and not afraid. And none of her cousin's new husband, a stranger who is both menacing and alluring, not of his father, the ancient patriarch who seems fascinated by her, not even of the house itself, which begins to invade Naomi's dreams with visions of blood and doom. Now, hopefully this is good. I like the idea of it. I've been burned recently, as we all know, on some more modern books. But I think I'm going to read a vintage next because Wildfell Hall just took a lot out of me. So what did I really want to say in this video? Well, what I wanted to say was, get some Brontë. You know, it's still a wonderful time of the year. It's still kind of cold and kind of gloomy. And I often find the Brontes are best read in the cold and the gloomy. They're not summertime reads. People may argue with me on that, and that's okay. That's fine. Just leave a comment. But get yourself some Brontes and get yourself, and the next one I want to read is Agnes Grey, again by Anne. But go out the beaten path a little bit. Try Villette. Oh, you will not regret it. Wildfell Hall, you will not regret it. Wuthering Heights, if that's your thing, please tell me why. And please tell me why I don't get it. Anyway, this is going to be a short video for today. That's all I really wanted to say, was that I finished that book and how much I enjoyed it. So I will catch you later. Thank you.